Welcome to part 2 of the laundry renovation. In part 1 we emptied and stripped out the laundry and I was able to do a initial layer of plaster. If you haven't seen part 1, go check that out first. In part 2 we're going to upgrade the lighting and look at fixing some tiles that are missing and damaged. So first of all I flipped the breaker off for the lighting circuitry. And I just checked with a multimeter to make sure that there's no mains present at the cabling I'm working on. Then I can remove the old light fixture and take that off. Now I want to measure out where my downlights will go, and I'm going to be putting 2 in and patching over the hole where the original light was sitting. And I'm just finding the center of the room and then measuring 600 millimeters back from each wall. And of course I made sure that where I was drilling I wasn't going to drill into any of the roof structure. Now I'm using a hole saw on the electric power drill to cut out the holes for the downlights, and I'm just taking my time when I'm cutting through and trying to go nice and slow. Sometimes the hole saw can wander and it can rip up the roof pretty bad. Ask me how I know that. The hole saw size I had is slightly too small for the downlights, so I'm just using a little saw that's on my multi-tool and just sort of cutting some slots. Once I've painted the ceiling and want to fit the lights in permanently, then we can maybe make some smaller adjustments if needed. I didn't film most of the electrical process because I really don't want people to try at home unless they know what they're doing. But essentially what I'm doing is putting some power points basically right by where the holes are in the roof so that I can reach through and plug in the downlights. This also makes them easier to change if they break or fail. Here I'm using a knife just to sort of bevel the edges of the hole and take off any burrs. This way I can get it as flat as possible when I plaster and sand it. Then I've got a piece of wood that I'm sort of pushing up in behind the hole and screwing through the plasterboard and into the piece of the wood, sinking the screws in. And this just gives the plaster something to adhere to. And that's basically the lighting done. Again, they won't be installed until the roof has been fully sanded and painted. Now we can move on to the missing and broken tiles, and these ones have been chopped out of the floor for part of the support for the bench top that was there. I bought a sort of mosaic set of the same size tiles in a white colour to put back in place where the broken ones were. They only cost about $5. I already had some tile set and some alabaster grout to use. I used a sort of concrete / tile cutting saw on my angle grinder just to clear out the grout between the broken pieces of tile. Then I can use a cold chisel and hammer just to smash out the bits of tile that I wanted to remove and try to get rid of the old tile set that was stuck to the concrete floor. One sort of tip I would give is that it's really beneficial to clear up the grout between the tiles, because when you're hitting them with the cold chisel you can sort of minimize the shock and force that's sort of translated across to the following tile, and this can stop the second one from chipping or breaking a tile that you don't want to break. And I'll show you what happens if you don't do that. So here I'm just chiseling away at the broken tile in the corner, and you can see that the line of grout between the broken tile and the following tile hasn't been cleaned, and what happened was it actually cracked and broke that second tile, which had nothing wrong with it in the first place. So to remove the tile properly, I cut the grout between the second and third tile and was able to remove that second tile without damaging the third tile in any way. I didn't want to go out and buy a tile that was the same size as the ones already installed, so I just cut some tiles that I already had to the right size. I'm planning on painting the tiles with a rust-oleum tile transformation kit, so it really doesn't matter what colour the tiles are, which is also why I wasn't worried about colour matching those square tiles on the floor. Then I made up some tile set, just going for sort of a toothpaste consistency, and put in my tiles. The spacing of those white tiles on the gauze sort of matting at the back wasn't accurate, but it doesn't really matter because these tiles will likely be covered by cupboards. It was just sort of one of those things that I may as well fill in while I have the chance. And I didn't film it, but the other tiles went on in basically the same way. Then I made up some of the alabaster coloured grout and applied it, and it was a bit of a messy job. I maybe made it a little bit too sloppy, but in the end you just clean up the excess with a sponge and it turned out pretty nice. I'm not really going for perfection here because it's all going to be painted over, and like I said, those tiles will probably be covered by the cupboards anyway. And the ones on the wall got the same treatment and they turned out okay. Well, that's basically the tiling finished. I've just got to wait for it to dry. So while I was waiting for that, I went ahead and replastered over some of the holes that had dried and sort of sunken through again, and just went up around the roof and tried to fill in all the cracks where the cornicing met the wall and where the old cupboards had sort of been pushed up against the roof. It had kind of peeled off the paint that was there. So next episode we're going to do some sanding, and I'll probably paint the ceiling and install the lights properly. Thanks for watching, and if you've only just seen my channel, please subscribe and leave a like for my videos. Thanks.